What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Frost in Austin, and today I am talking about the top 10 best smallmouth fisheries in North Carolina. So I'm really going to be focusing on west of Charlotte, North Carolina, mostly because I would say 99, 98, 99, probably honestly 99% of the smallmouth in North Carolina are located west of Charlotte in the highland reservoirs that are in the foothills and mountains in western North Carolina. So today I am going to be talking about those top 10 lakes, and I will also mention a few of the honorable lakes that did not make the top 10 list, and not even lakes, but just overall fisheries, because there are some rivers that you can still access by boat. Sometimes it's a jet drive boat and even a raft style boat. But yeah, we are going to get after it. I previously did a ranking maybe like 5 years ago, and I actually think the ranking has changed. And you might be wondering like, hey, who makes you the sayer of the ranking? I will say we have guided for a decade. I've been a big bass guide for a decade in western North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, and North Georgia. I am not the final say. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. And if you enjoy the video, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel. We are always rolling out some awesome fishing content. There are some ridiculously sick videos in the pipeline. So without further ado, I am going to pull up my list and talk about them, okay? So first lake on the list, which I would consider ranked number 10, is Lake Lure. Lake Lure is the home of the video, or home of the movie Dirty Dancing. It's south and east of Asheville, North Carolina, and predominantly known for pretty good largemouth fishing, but there is a population of smallmouth on the lake. The lake is heavily populated with threadfin shad. The lake has some points. The lake has some deep areas, but for the most part, it's actually relatively a shallower fishery compared to most of the mountain lakes, but the smallmouth do hang out on isolated rock, kind of off the bank. They kind of do their thing, and you can find them kind of meandering around, pelagic, nomadic, offshore, chasing around threadfin, and every once in a while you will catch one up shallow. But Lake Lure is what I would consider the number 10 best smallmouth fishery in western North Carolina. All right, number 9 is a lake that is super far west. I mean, super far west. It is located next to Robbinsville, North Carolina. It is Lake Santitla. It is a unique fishery in the fact that I know there are a lot of threadfin shad in the lake. There's a lot of largemouth, and there are starting to be a lot more spotted bass showing up. And I just want to side note this. A lot of the lakes in North Carolina that have smallmouth are currently being infiltrated with the spotted bass. Like, the spotted bass are taking over those fisheries. The reason why is they are a little bit more of an aggressive fish, but the big thing is they actually breed with the smallmouth, so they impurify those genetics. It's actually hurt the smallmouth population across the board in most of these lakes, because there actually are lakes that were previously in my top 5 ranking is what I think I did before, that now we don't even ever catch smallmouth in them. So crazy just anecdote right there. But Santilla is number 9. On to the next one. Number 8 is Lake Hiwassee. Lake Hiwassee is super far west, just outside of a town in Murphy, North Carolina. It is a long kind of serpentine, a lot of little arms and creeks that come into it, but the lake is really unique because it has a lot of deep water access. They fluctuate the lake big time with their winter drawdowns. A lot of fish pull offshore. There's blueback herring in the lake, and it makes a smallmouth crazy. They are the most nomadic pelagic fish. You catch them, they can be 22, 23 inches long and only 4 pounds, because they're always burning calories, chasing around herring. But we have caught some giants over the years on everything from big swim baits to Alabama rigs to jerk baits, and it is a great fishery. But just like Santilla, the spotted bass have really started to decimate the smallmouth population, but it is still a top 10 fishery for catching smallmouth bass in North Carolina. All right, number 7 is Fontana Lake. Fontana Lake is almost identical to Lake Hiwassee in the sense of it's these big mountains that go into the water. You get these really steep kind of 45-degree angle banks, and it serpentines a lot of big rivers. The unique thing and why I ranked Fontana Lake above Lake Hiwassee is primarily because there's actually two big rivers that come into Fontana Lake that are absolute smallmouth gems. One is the Little Tennessee River that comes out of Franklin, North Carolina, and kind of flows through the backwoods all the way down into Fontana Lake. And then the other is the Tuckasegee River, which starts in Cashers, North Carolina, and flows all the way down through Silva, Dillsboro, Whittier, Bryson City, Cherokee, and all the way down. But both of those rivers are absolutely chock full of really nice smallmouth. And honestly, I thought about doing this as like an overall fisheries ranking, and those would have been separate fisheries. Because they come into the same body of water, Fontana Lake, I figured I would count Fontana Lake inside the top 10, but it can still be really hard to catch smallmouth out there. Once again, spotted bass have destroyed that population. But a couple years ago, Fontana Classic, my partner and I, Paul Bork, we actually won the tournament, and day one we weighed in a full bag of smallmouth. It was the first time anyone's seen a full bag of smallmouth in a while. It wasn't a monstrous bag by any means. It was like 13 pounds. And then day two, we ended up catching some really big largemouth and meanmouth, which is a spotted bass mixed with a smallmouth. And we ended up weighing in like 19 and a half pounds to win that tournament. But Fontana Lake, nonetheless, Fontana Lake is number 7. Number 6, I just talked about it. Well, not really. I talked about the Tuckasegee River, but the top of the Tuckasegee River in Cashers, North Carolina, there is a 1,600 acre reservoir called Lake Glenville. And Lake Glenville is a really unique fishery. It has a ton of residential housing on it, so there's a lot of boat traffic, but there are some freakzilla smallmouth. It is actually the highest lake in elevation east of the Mississippi River, so it stays relatively colder than all of the other lakes, and it has blueback herring in it. So once again, same deal as a lot of the lakes. You can catch some absolute freakzilla long smallmouth, and they'll be like 4 or 5 pounders, which don't get me wrong, a 4 and 5 pound smallmouth is a giant smallmouth, but every once in a while you'll catch a smallmouth out there that is absolutely chunked up. My biggest smallmouth, which is just a little over 6 pounds, was caught out of Lake Glenville on a top water during the herring spawn a few years ago. It was like 23 and a half inches. Thing was built like it was just huge. So actually ate the top water right next to the boat, which was just awesome. But the lake is a fantastic fishery. You will catch more largemouth than smallmouth there, but the smallmouth are nomadic, pelagic. They live offshore. You can get out off the points. Kind of, if you have live scope, you could definitely find them a little easier, but they are offshore there and you can smash them. So Lake Glenville, definitely one of the best smallmouth fisheries in North Carolina. All right, number 5 is the lake below Lake Hiwassee. So we talked about Lake Hiwassee out in Murphy, North Carolina, but just below Lake Hiwassee is Lake Appalachia. And Lake Appalachia and Lake Hiwassee make up part of the Hiwassee River that eventually flows to Lake Chickamauga. Now, Lake Chickamauga does have really good smallmouth fishing, and really the whole Tennessee River does, but Lake Appalachia has some more spotted bass. It's getting more spotted bass, but there are some really nice largemouth there, and there are a lot of big smallmouth that like to get in that running water from the dam of Lake Hiwassee, and you can catch some studs. It's not uncommon to go out there and have a 5 smallmouth limit, a 5 fish smallmouth limit of anywhere between really 17 and 20 to even 21, 22 pounds. We have caught some really big smallmouth there over the years on anything from glide baits to Alabama rigs, crankbaits, finesse fishing, everything in between. That fishery is an awesome fishery for sure. Make sure if you're looking for smallmouth in Western North Carolina, you stop by Lake Appalachia. All right, number 4 is a lake that I have actually never fished, and I'm going to soon, I assure you of that, and that is Lake Calderwood. All the rivers kind of run down into Fontana Lake. Fontana Lake runs into another lake, and then it runs into another lake called Calderwood. And Calderwood is known for a lot of trout. It is known for a lot of kind of cold water species fish. There's good largemouth there, but there are some absolutely stud smallmouth out there. They get in the current in that serpentine river, much like Lake Appalachia, and you can scope them off of boulders. You can get out offshore off of points. Really, there's on all of our reservoirs, because we have these big snaking lakes and creek channels, you usually have a channel swing bank and then flats on the opposite side, right? So where it's steep, you get channel swing banks. Those are deep, kind of bluff walls and such. And then On the other side of the shore, it's usually sand flats with isolated boulder. You can get out there all times of the year. Once again, blueback herring and smallmouth. There are some really nice smallmouth there. I have heard of some unbelievable smallmouth there, and that is on the hit list in the next few weeks. I assure you of that. All right, number 3 is a lake that is closer to Charlotte. It is Lake James. I previously had Lake James as my number 1 best smallmouth fishery in North Carolina, just because of the sheer numbers you can catch there. And here's the deal, you can still go there and catch a ton of numbers, but one thing I've started to notice over time is it is really lacking the size. It's not uncommon to go there and catch really 20 to 30 smallmouth in a day, but if you're gonna catch a 3+ pounder, it is really rare. When we first started fishing over there, we caught a ton of 3 to 4 pound smallmouth. There is, for whatever reason, a big culture of people who catch and keep really nice smallmouth there to eat. They're wondering where all the smallmouth went. They're in your septic tank. But I don't know why everyone does that at Lake James, but the spotted bass, people have brought them in from Lake Norman and other fisheries, have absolutely started to take over that lake. You can catch numbers and numbers of fish on that lake across the board. It is a hard lake to catch just really good quality size fish. I don't know why, it used to not be like that, but then there's blueback herring, which usually helps the fish grow bigger. But for whatever reason, Lake James has really tapered off the size. All right, number 2 is Nantahala Lake, and it is kind of in Andrews, North Carolina. It's between Franklin and Murphy. It's kind of out in the boonies all by itself. If you want to go there, it's literally a destination. You're going there just for the lake. There's no other towns really around it. I guess it's like 45 minutes from everything. But it is out in the boonies, and it too is a blueback herring lake. It's Nantahala Lake, makes up the Nantahala River that flows into Fontana Lake, and there's good smallmouth in the river. It's primarily known for brown trout and rainbow trout, brook trout, but Nantahala Lake is an awesome fishery. A lot of sand flats, isolated boulder, deep water, blueback herring, and a really healthy population of smallmouth. You can catch them almost year round, doing a plethora of different things as long as you're matching the hatch, which of course on that lake is blueback herring. We've caught some really nice fish. I've heard stories of 7-pound smallmouth coming out of there. I personally every year catch a couple of smallmouth out there that are 4 to 5 pounds. One of the guides at Dream Catchers, Jennings Cooper, he guides a ton out there, and they absolutely smash nice smallmouth. And it is a really cool fishery. It's got really big largemouth, it's got really big smallmouth, it has salmon, it has trout, and it is an awesome fishery. It can be finicky, I will say it can be finicky, but when it is on, it is lights out. You can absolutely smash numbers of big smallmouth when it's going down out there. Number 1, huge surprise. Everybody's gonna be scratching their head like, what? I've never even heard of that lake. What? It is Lake Cheoah. Lake Cheoah is below Fontana. So right, I said Fontana Lake flows into a lake, and then that lake flows into Calderwood. Well, the lake in between is Cheoah. And Cheoah is, once again, a serpentine lake with big, steep, deep bluff walls, big sand flats, rocks, everything in between. And I actually had talked to a wildlife biologist, a regional wildlife biologist, and he said the most quality average size smallmouth and number of smallmouth actually reside in Cheoah Lake. I actually have yet to fish this lake, and it, just like Calderwood, is on my hit list. I promise I am gonna go out there and have an awesome time. I heard there's all sorts of cold water species in there, tons of trout, tons of big smallmouth. I heard there's really good largemouth fishing in there too. So I am really excited to go out there and explore and try to catch some giant smallmouth. So those are the top 10 lakes in North Carolina. Like I said, almost 99.9% of the smallmouth in North Carolina are west of Charlotte in the mountains and everything. But here's the deal, I do have a couple of lakes that are on my honorable mention list. I guess not even lakes, they're fisheries. One is the French Broad River in Asheville. It ends up flowing into Douglas Lake further down, in the Pigeon River in Haywood County. Those kind of come together and they make up Douglas Lake further on down in Tennessee. But the Pigeon River and the French Broad River are absolutely loaded with good smallmouth. Same with the Saluda River down near Hendersonville, Brevard area that flows down south towards, I think, Lake Murray. And then the last one, you can say, hey, that doesn't really count, but it's Lake Jocassee, a little sliver of Lake Jocassee is in Western North Carolina. I think where the Toxaway Creek comes in and the Horse Pasture River are both really close right there. I mean, I think they're in North Carolina, but I've caught some really good smallmouth out of that reservoir too. So anyways, those are my honorable mentions. So to recap, we'll go down. Number 10, Lake Lure. Number 9, Lake Santilla. Number 8, Lake Hiwassee. Number 7, Fontana Lake. Number 6, Lake Glenville. Number 5, Lake Appalachia. Number 4, Lake Calderwood. Number 3, Lake James. Number 2, Nantahala Lake. And number 1, Lake Chioa, or Chioa Lake, right there below Fontana Dam. So anyways, that is the top 10 ranking best smallmouth fisheries in North Carolina. I hope you plan a trip to one of these reservoirs. If you do, go to fishtips.com. We always have awesome content from guides going up, giving you awesome tips on how you can maximize your time on the water and have awesome success. So anyways, I appreciate you guys a ton. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more awesome fishing content. I'm out. See ya.